Oh boy, we got some new data which is showing crazy changes in the U.S. housing market over the last month. Most notably, a huge surge, an absolutely huge surge in listings and inventory onto the market across the country. Put simply, sellers are saying to themselves, I better sell now or else prices are going to go down. But what's really interesting about this data, especially if you're a prospective home buyer or a real estate investor who's trying to decide, should I buy now or should I wait? Well, this data is showing big differences across America in how much inventory is increasing. Some areas are seeing massive surges of new inventory, while others are actually still experiencing declines. And it's really important to understand what's going on in your city, what's going on in your backyard. So this video is going to help you do that. I'm going to give you the real-time data that comes from Realtor.com on this listing and inventory surge and show you where it's happening most. All right, everyone, let's get into the data. And the first thing we need to understand about the U.S. housing market during the pandemic is that the reason we're seeing all of this craziness in terms of really low inventory over the last 6 months and crazy high home price appreciation is due to supply constraints. The supply of new listings onto the housing market since the pandemic hit has dropped considerably. And you can see that on this graph where we're looking at the trailing 3 months of listings in any given month over the last 5 years. And you can see that in 2017, 2018, we had a very typical trend where in June we would have maybe 1.6 million listings over the previous 3 months. That would go down to about 1 million in January, and that was the seasonal trend in the amount of new listings, people listing their home for sale, inventory onto the market in the US. But then something happened during the pandemic. New listings didn't go up in the spring of 2020. You can see that here. In March, in April, in May, in June, in July, new listings stayed subdued. Basically, the pandemic happened. People got scared. No one wanted to list their home, and that has basically resulted in a huge crunch of inventory on the market, which is why prices are so high. And you can see this listing shortage even got further exacerbated into the winter of this year, February 2021. And this is really like when the housing market was nuts. We had never seen inventory this low in this period, and there was really nothing on the market. But here's the good news for everyone. Inventory since the winter of 2021 has surged. New listings have surged up to 1.3 million over the trailing 3 months in August 2021. That's the highest level of new listings we've seen coming to market in America since the fall of 2019, prior to the pandemic. So we're making real progress in the last couple months in terms of getting more and more sellers to list their homes, getting more inventory onto the market. And this is the first step. This is the first step that we need to see as far as market stabilization, which will then transition into market crash. Now, after looking at that graph, I suspect a lot of you are asking the question, which I ask myself too, is, all right, great. New listings have gone up a lot the last 3 to 4 months. That's welcome news for the U.S. housing market, objectively speaking, right? We're out of the crisis stage in terms of new listings and inventory, and we're increasing, which is going to provide a better buying opportunity for home buyers and real estate investors. But the question that you probably want to know is, all right, what's going to happen to new listings over the next 3 to 6 months? Because this is really what's going to dictate whether now is the right time for you to buy or whether you should wait. If new listings continue to increase, they continue their upward trajectory, then it would probably be a good idea to wait. Because if we have more and more new listings over the next 6 months, then it's going to be a better buying opportunity in 6 months. But if new listings kind of reverse their recent growth trend, and if they start going down, maybe because of the typical fall and winter sales season leading to fewer listings, then maybe you should buy now. So understanding the future direction of inventory is very important. I'm going to be answering the question of where this inventory is going later in the video. There's some data points from the U.S. Census Bureau which suggest to me that inventory is going to continue increasing. But I'm going to cover that a little bit later. What I want to address before is the parts of the country, the cities across America that are seeing right now the biggest inventory surge. Because as I've talked about multiple times on this channel before, the notion of a U.S. housing market in general is a bit deceiving. In reality, we have hundreds of different micro-housing markets going on across the country that are all on their own housing cycle time frame. And what we're seeing right now in America is that certain parts of the country are seeing massive surges in new listings and inventory. Like certain parts of the country are well ahead in terms of heading towards the housing crash, while other parts of the country are well behind and still in kind of like a frenzied, crazy, super low inventory state. So As a home buyer, real estate investor, you got to understand what's going on in your backyard, in your city. How much have new listings increased in your city, and what does that mean for your buying decision? And that's what we're evaluating on this map. We're looking at the 200 largest metro areas in America, and we're seeing how much listings have increased over the last year. We're basically looking at the trailing 3-month listings through August 2021 and comparing them to the trailing 3-month listings through August 2020. And here's what the color coding means, because I'm sure that's kind of the first thing your eye is kind of geared to. The redder the metro area looks, the bigger the surge in new listings, new homes coming to market over the last 3 months. The bluer the metro area looks, actually there's a decline in new listings in those markets. And so as you can see, massive differences going on across America right now. And I think the first thing that I'm drawn to on this map is the east-west divide. Like if we draw a line kind of through the middle of Texas, right, and we go up, we can see that there's a lot more red on the western side of the U.S., aka a bigger surge of listings on the western half of the U.S. than there is on the eastern half of the U.S., particularly the southeast. If you guys are enjoying the data I'm producing in this video and you want to see more of it going forward, updates on the housing market, listings, prices, price cuts, then just make sure you hit that like button. When you hit the like button, it gets me more exposure on YouTube and allows me to produce more of this content going forward. Also, please leave a comment. Let me know what you're seeing and experiencing in the housing market, whether you're a buyer, a renter, or seller. When you all comment, it makes these videos better. All right, let's get back to it. And this is very interesting. Like if we look at some Western markets, like a Provo, Utah, where we've seen a 36% increase in new listings to market in Provo. That's a massive surge, as well as a 40% increase in new listings to market in Boise. So we see Provo, Boise, Salt Lake, and Ogden in between, an area of a big surge in listings, which means that these markets are softening first and becoming more buyer-friendly first. If we go up to the Pacific Northwest as well, we can see Eugene, Oregon, Salem, Oregon, Portland, Yakima, Washington, Olympia, Washington. Big surges in new listings here, as well as the Central Valley in California, Stockton, 36% increase in listings. Modesto, 40% increase. Fresno, 28%. And so we can really see that there's just this slice of the U.S. on the, kind of the mountain states, Central Valley, California, Northwest, which in my opinion, this area is going to be the first to experience the housing crash. This will be the first part of the country, in my opinion, where we're going to see price declines occurring. And we're already seeing basically stabilization in prices in these markets. I think we're going to see declines coming very, very soon. But not all areas of the country are like this. If we zoom over to the southeast, we can see it's the exact opposite in the southeast right now. A place like Nashville has had a 23% decline in new listings over the last year. Raleigh has had a 20% decline. Charleston's had a 10% decline. Northport, Sarasota, Florida has had a 21% decline. 24% decline in Naples. So we have a very different situation going on in the southeast, where actually the levels of new listings and inventory now are lower than they were a year ago. We're going to come back to this map a little later in the video, so I'm going to cover a couple more markets. In case I haven't covered your market yet, we're going to cover them more in depth later in the video, so stay tuned for that. So what this means is that the Southeast is an absolutely crazy place right now to buy a home or investment property. I mean, you have like minuscule inventory, and that minuscule inventory is getting snatched up in 2 days when it goes on the market. Multiple offers, over-ask situations, waivings of contingencies. I mean, it's nuts buying in the Southeast right now. And like, unless you're someone in a state like Tennessee or Florida who like needs to buy a home now for family or whatever, like, I don't know why you would want to compete in the current market. Because what's going on in the Southeast now is exactly what's happened in like the Northwest and West Coast 6 months ago. And this is really important to understand. These parts of the countries are in different timelines and cycles. Whereas a place like Boise now is seeing a big surge in new listings, as is a place like Eugene, Oregon, or Stockton, California. These markets 6 months ago were in the same place that the Southeast is today. And so that should give you some hope if you're in the Southeast US, is that I know things seem really bad right now in the housing market and like inventory will never go up, but that's what it seemed like in all those areas in red on the west side of the map 6 months ago. But of course, inventory did go up in those markets, and it's a much better buying situation there now than it was 6 months previous. So that's something to think about if you are in a Southeast market feeling that FOMO-driven pressure of wanting to buy today. Just understand that things will likely get better in the next 3 to 6 months. And so one way that we feel reasonably confident that inventory is going to go up in the Southeast and the rest of the U.S. more broadly is that it's already happening on the West Coast and in the markets that were earliest in feeling the housing bubble and housing squeeze. That's one way we can feel confident about that. But another way is just by analyzing some key data points, particularly from the U.S. Census Bureau, which tracks home building and construction across America. And one of the realities of the housing market during the pandemic was that the amount of new building, as in completions of homes, went down. It went down during the pandemic. And this exacerbated all of the issues we were seeing in the housing market because builders, due to various issues, whether they be material shortages or labor shortages or like lumber prices going up by 4x, that basically put a pause on a lot of construction projects across America in 2020 and early 2021, and that's really made the housing shortage worse. The good news, though, is that those issues are being resolved, and there's a massive, massive backlog of homes that have been started but haven't been completed and finished that's going to hit the market over the next 6 months. And you can get a sense of this by evaluating two key data points from the U.S. Census Bureau monthly construction survey. The first is what the yellow line is showing, which is the year-over-year increase in housing starts. A housing start is when a builder starts pouring the foundation for a home. That's the yellow line. We're comparing that to the blue line, which is the year-over-year increase in completions of homes on the housing market. And so starts tend to lead completions. You start a home and then generally 3 to 6 months later, you complete it and the people can move in. But this relationship is broken down in the pandemic, and kind of let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if we go back historically, 2015, 2016, we can see that the increase in starts and the increase in completions was fairly related, and this makes sense. Starts are going to go up, there's going to be a bit of a lag, and then completions are going to go up. But you can see something really interesting happen, actually starting in late 2019, is that the level of completions, increase in completions went down significantly from about 75 to 100,000 more completions each year to, during the pandemic, really in 2020, we were around 30,000, 34,000, 66,000. So just as we had this increase of demand for homes during the pandemic, the completions of new homes declined. And that's not good. That really exacerbated a lot of the issues. And one of the reasons why we saw that new listing decline I talked about on the first graph is that we just haven't been able to complete as many homes, even compared to historical averages. But the wild thing is that as that's happening, housing starts, when they start laying the foundation for a new home, have surged. Housing starts have gone way up. All the way through July now, housing starts are up plus 220,000 year over year. Massive increase in builders starting the construction of new homes. What I predict we're going to see is that these completions, which have already started edging up a bit in recent months, these completions are going to skyrocket. Completions are going to start skyrocketing over the next 3 to 6 months to match the surge in housing starts. And that means, I think, by November, December, January, we're going to start seeing completion increases year over year of 200,000. And that's going to deliver some much needed relief to the housing market. And so at this point, it's really important to remember that the craziness that we're seeing in the pandemic housing market in America is primarily fueled by temporary factors constricting supply. We just addressed one of them, which was that home builders couldn't complete the amount of homes that they wanted to complete during the pandemic due to a variety of reasons, material shortages, labor shortages. Those are easing now, and we're already starting to see completions edge up. We're going to see them surge, right? And so basically the thing that was keeping inventory down, builders not being able to complete, well, that's going to now push inventory up going forward as builders are completing more new homes over the next 6 months to match the increase in housing starts. So that's one temporary supply disruption that's going to be resolved. But that's not all, folks. The bounce back in home completions to match housing starts, that's just the first thing that's going to occur to ease the shortage of homes and cause inventory to go up. There's other things. I mean, think about the foreclosure moratorium. For over a year, banks have not been allowed to foreclose or pursue foreclosure on borrowers who aren't paying their mortgage payments. And right now, there's 1.5 million seriously delinquent homeowners right now on their mortgages. 1.5 million. Serious delinquency means you haven't paid your mortgage interest in over 90 days. That's a huge amount. That's the same amount that it was back in like 2012. 1.5 million. And historically, a serious delinquency almost always results in a foreclosure. But that mechanism hasn't been allowed to happen over the last year. So we could potentially have 1.5 million homes coming to market either through foreclosure directly, or what I think is more likely to happen, banks will pursue foreclosure and basically force and push the owner to sell the home. Either way, whether it's a foreclosure or the existing owner selling, inventory on the housing market, new listings is going to surge. But there's still even more. We also have a segment of owners who have been scared to list their home over the last 15 months. First, due to the pandemic, number one, and then secondarily, due to the housing inventory squeeze, they didn't want to list their home because they were afraid they couldn't find either another home to buy or another place to rent, and thus they just haven't listed at all. I think this number could be in over 1 million people who, out of fear, did not list during the pandemic. These people are going to be coming fast and furious to the market to list their homes as these first two things, the completions and the foreclosures, go through. As the market continues to soften, we will see these fear-driven listers who haven't listed. They're going to come back very fast. And for these reasons, I think the bump in new listings in America over the last 3 months is just the start. I don't think we're going to enter a typical fall and winter sales season where listings plummet. I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see them continue to go up compared to where they would normally be during those months. And that's going to mean continued softening for the housing market. And so if it were me, right, if it were me and I'm a home buyer, right, I am not buying right now, especially if I'm in the Southeast. Because if I'm in the Southeast, I'm competing in this just wacky market that isn't real or supported by any type of fundamentals. That's how you make big mistakes. That's how you buy a home that you don't really like and that you're going to want to sell in a year because you hate it. So I definitely wouldn't be buying the Southeast for me personally. If I'm in a place like Boise or Stockton or Olympia, Washington, where inventory has increased a lot, if I'm desperate to buy a home, maybe I consider it, right? Because now my buying experience is way better. I have a higher likelihood of finding a property I like, but I'm still paying a crazy price in those markets, and I don't want to pay a crazy price. I want prices to come down, which I believe they will, because as I just said, this surge in new listings is just getting going. But you really need to understand, like I said earlier, what's going on in your backyard in order to make a more informed decision. What is the inventory situation looking like in your city? And now I'm going to return to that metro level map showing the increase in listings so you can see what's going on in your area. So now we're back at this map, and now I'm going to talk about some other areas where new listings are increasing. We can see that DC, Washington, D.C. metro, new listings have increased by 25% year over year. In Baltimore, they've increased by 27%. In Philly, they've increased by 19%. So kind of this corridor of northeast cities, Philly, Baltimore, D.C., is seeing a big surge in inventory, something to watch out for. That means the market is softening. If we head to the Midwest, Columbus, Ohio has seen a 31% increase in new listings year over year. Cleveland, Ohio has also seen a 31% increase, as has Akron. So Ohio is seeing a big bounce back in listings and inventory. And a lot of the Midwest is too. Like if we go to Indianapolis, we're plus 17%. Louisville, we're plus 24%. St. Louis, we're plus 18%. Another area we're starting to see growth is at least certain parts of Texas. Austin is up 17% year over year. Killeen's up 39%. Waco's up 16%. We haven't quite seen the surge yet approach Dallas, but in central Texas, we are seeing a bounce back. Now, if we head further back down to the southeast, we can see, Raleigh, we talked about a second ago, is down 20% listings year over year. That's one of the highest in the U.S. So Raleigh is super tight right now, super low inventory. Interestingly, a lot of the markets around Raleigh, like Fayetteville, North Carolina, Greensboro, Winston-Salem are up on inventory, but Raleigh is down. Wilmington, North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina are down on listings. Charleston's down, as we said before. Savannah's down 12%. And then really, as we go into Florida, we can see it's southern Florida, particularly, which is having the crunch. Lakeland, Northport's down 21%, Cape Coral's down 22%, Naples is down 24%, Miami is down 9%. So southern Florida is where really the tightness is. If we actually head further north into Gainesville, Tallahassee, and then to the Panhandle, Crestview, and Pensacola, further north it's a little bit better in Florida, but in the south it's just really, really tough to find a home. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed this video. I love sharing this data with you, real-time information on inventory and listings across the country. I think it's really important to keep track of this going forward, and on this channel I will continue to keep track of it for you. So if you want to see more of this content and you're not a subscriber yet, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I come out with 2 to 3 data-driven videos per week on real estate markets across the country. So I know you'll enjoy this content going forward. Additionally, if you want to support this channel financially, think about joining and becoming a channel member. The cost is $5 a month. You help me out financially. You help finance my road trips when I go to certain markets and cover, for instance, Oklahoma City live from those markets. Those trips cost money. So your channel membership, it goes to that. In addition, you get great perks as a channel member. We have an exclusive member-only community board where I post graphs and polls and data. In addition, I come out with a monthly newsletter that's only available to ReVenture channel members. I just came out with the first issue this week. So if you're interested in that, hit the join button below. There's also a link in the description. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Fortunately, I'm not going to be gone for too long. I'll be coming back on Wednesday with another market deep dive. This will be an on-the-ground episode from Dallas. I'll be giving you all the data on Dallas's housing market and also be filming on the ground. You're not going to want to miss this one. I know a lot of you are curious about the Dallas housing market, so make sure to tune in on Wednesday. All right, until then, this is Nick from ReVenture Consulting signing off.